the Russian sector. 5,941 nautical miles, Pskov to Nome, Alaska. Tuesday, 27th of May, Pskov, Moscow. At 0700 hours, the team assembled in the small restaurant for breakfast, and Bill overcame our lack of even a smattering of Russian by pointing out a huge egg breakfast being enjoyed by another guest and signing 5 of those and coffee. This had the desired effect, as we were already eating when Yuri arrived from home to start his first full day with the Brits. Leaving the hotel at 0745 hours, we had hoped to leave for Moscow at 1000 hours. However, it took that length of time just to resolve what the Russians' understanding of Chipmunk visual flying involved. Air traffic control authorities insisted that we must fly in the base of the airways at 3,300 metres, about 11,000 feet. We were equally adamant that we cannot fly at that altitude without oxygen, and our aircraft are not navigationally fitted to comply with airways procedures. Eventually, a compromise was reached. We would fly the Chipmunks as high as we were able, clear of cloud, and report to air traffic control that we were flying at 3,300 metres. Not an ideal situation, but at least honour was satisfied and we were seen to be complying with their rules in spirit, if not in deed. We were to have almost similar negotiations with air traffic control authorities in Moscow before we continued into the heart of Russia. Refuelling and payment for fuel and airport charges took an age, and we finally took to the skies some 5 hours after arrival at the airport, a pattern of events which was to become all too familiar over the Russian sector. Zed and Bill got airborne in the Chipmunks, with the Islander leaving some 30 minutes later and slowly overtaking, to arrive in Moscow about 30 minutes ahead. The en route weather was not good, with the cloud base generally between 3,000 and 3,500, with very heavy showers forcing detours around the worst of the storms. Flying below the cloud, we dutifully reported that we were level at 3,300 metres throughout the whole sortie, even though we were at times some 8,000 feet below that level. Air traffic control were unhappy with our intended route and insisted that we change course to fly via Velika Luki, some 30 miles off the direct track, which extended the sortie to 4 hours 5 minutes, the longest of the trip thus far. Our arrival at Sheremetyevo 1 airport, the Moscow equivalent of Heathrow, was radar directed along the airways for a visual landing from left base to short finals to fit into the stream of passenger jets conducting Instrument Landing System (ILS) approaches to the main runway. We parked at the business centre terminal, as in our 1996 visit, and were met by Air Attaché Air Commodore Mike Feenhan and staff, who had not been allowed onto the dispersal to welcome the aircraft to Moscow. The problem of getting the 4 25-litre drums of oil to the Islander from the embassy estate car in the car park was soon resolved when we spoke to Irene and Eleanor, the business centre managers, and appraised them for their impasse between embassy staff and customs. We had befriended these 2 ladies in 1996 and had given them Chipmunk photos and souvenirs, etc. for their children. Amazingly, Eleanor had a daughter married to a Brit and living in Peterborough, a mere 15 miles from both Zed and Bill's own homes. The personal touch helps to get things done in Russia, just like the rest of the world over. As we bypassed customs officials with the cans and loaded them into the Islander, customs officials were very confused and a little bewildered by the fact that we had already completed Russian immigration formalities before we arrived in Moscow, and were very suspicious, especially as we were accompanied by a member of the Russian military as part of the British team. We, on the other hand, were only too pleased not to have a repeat performance of 1996, when the aircraft spares were confiscated and only returned after the payment of a hefty charge. Bribe. A German-registered light civil aircraft in a dilapidated state of repair sat on the dispersal as a solitary reminder of diplomatic rules and procedures. The pilot, we were informed, was still languishing in jail 6 months after landing, with incorrect authorization for entry into Russian airspace. Following a celebratory beer with the air attaché, we booked into the Central Krenia Hotel overlooking the White House, Parliament building. We had used this hotel during our previous visit and found it to be one of the few establishments in Russia which accepted credit cards. This particular hotel was the base of international TV journalists who broadcast dramatic pictures to the world of tanks firing shells into the gleaming facade and troops storming the Parliament building during the abortive coup some 10 years ago. No sooner had we settled into our rooms than we all received the inevitable phone calls which we had been plagued with on our last visit. Would you like a lovely Russian lady in your room? After turning down the offer, the next question was invariably, how about a nice Russian boy instead? We quickly unplugged the telephones from the wall sockets and only replaced them when needing to make outgoing calls. Preparations to celebrate the 850th anniversary of the foundation of the city were well underway, with cleaning and painting of government and civic buildings taking high priority. Moscow certainly looks much smarter this year.